Coming up this week on the Digital Lifestyle Show 809, Gary's here and we're talking about what we expect to see at the Microsoft event this week. Some stuff's leaked, but I don't think everything has. So we'll be talking about what we expect to see then, the upgrade details and all that kind of thing. We have got some Windows Insider news as well. We'll be talking about EV, electric vehicles, and other technology stories as well. And also why Windows 8 and Windows 8.1 and Windows 10 doesn't have startup sound. We have the definitive answer, all coming up this week on the show. Gary, good evening.
Good evening. How are you?
Okay, good. And no Richard tonight. He's on a jolly outing.
He is, yes, because we're recording this on a Tuesday night, which is when the England versus somebody else's football match is on. I don't know about these things.
Yeah.
Yeah. Somehow Richard's got himself an invite.
Yeah, he's done quite well. The only thing I make sure is that we don't record when there's any Formula One or other motorsport on, which we don't. So that's a good thing. So we've always managed to avoid that. Yeah, so we'll leave Richard for the football, but. Yeah, that we'll catch up with him next week. But this week's going to be an interesting week because we've got the Microsoft Windows event on Thursday. What is it, 11 a.m. Eastern time?
Eastern now, so
it's 4 p.m. UK.
I think it's 4 p.m. our time. You can fun.
Oh, I'm looking forward to that. And I'm actually working from home this week, so I shall have it up on my big screen. And be able to follow that. Now, I know things have leaked quite a bit, but I think some of the interesting detail hasn't.
Yes, yeah. There's been hints being pushed out today on the old Twitters. Miguel, who used to run Xamarin before it was taken over by Microsoft, tweeted out that one of his favourite features of all time, he's been requesting for months or years, is in this version, and it hasn't leaked. So that'd be interesting to see.
Yeah, I saw that. I was going to ask you about that because I know you know through the Xamarin side. So yeah. I wonder what that could be.
Could be anything. I mean, he's a real Apple fanboy. It could be something to do with that, but in the nicest possible way. But I mean, he's had lots of good ideas over the years, so it could be. I suspect it'd be quite good, whatever it is. We'll find out afterwards.
Yeah,
it's good. It hasn't leaked. It's good. There's stuff still to expect and still to watch for. Because I don't like leaks. I think sometimes the leaks is spoil fun. But yeah.
Yeah, I think they do really. I mean, the naming was. They've done well to keep it to this short time span, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, Windows 11, and who knows what else we're going to see. I'm really looking forward to it actually. Now it's just I don't know, like maybe the name and a few other bits and pieces have been kind of leaked, but it's going to be interesting. I think there's a developer on event later that day, isn't there, as well?
Yeah, following on. So that's going to be interesting as well. There's a lot of people saying that's the bits of build. They didn't release the build because Windows wasn't ready. So it's going to be all the windowy things from build. So yeah, that's going to be would have been in build.
But yeah, so developers know how to target, I guess, the new interface designs and new guidelines and that kind of thing.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they do actually include that in that. It's,
I suppose where there will be is a store, isn't it? If they'll have to explain to developers this new store, if there is a new store. I mean, we're hearing rumours of it, but we'll see. But that would be the time to do that. Yeah, so Windows 10X. Although it might be dead, apart from running on my Lumia, we might see that style of interface on Thursday. Will be interesting to see, and then it would kind of make sense why they're kind of doing that and just putting it all into one operating system. I wonder if we'll see Windows 11 mobile.
Oh, you never know.
Duo, it would be nice to see. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to that. So. I'm guessing what. So we've seen the lead. But what would you say we're going to look in to see? What you're expecting?
Well, obviously new UX. I mean, that's the main thing. It's been. But I think it's going to be stuff under the skin. One of the most exciting things which has sort of leaked out is that performance may be better, which would be for me would be really good if we actually get a slightly better performing operating system. But yeah, I mean, I don't know if we can see many features and. Not sure about whether we'll see features, but we're certainly good. I mean, certainly look and feel is definitely going to be radically different again, and that won't please everybody.
No, I guess that's the one thing that I'll be interested to hear is how they managed that for Enterprise, and whether there's just a simple switch that's controllable via group policy that makes it look very familiar. But then they can't maintain two entire operating system front ends, can they, going forward? It doesn't make sense that. So they, as much as they can move things over, and things like, give you the option of moving the start button back to the left and things like that, it can't be a complete switch to the old version, because then it would be maintaining two sets of code.
Yeah, indeed.
So yeah, I think we'll see. Well, what I want to hear about, we'll see the new start menu. I'm guessing that from what we've seen, it'll look familiar to Windows 10X, but exactly like that. But that kind of theme, centralized start menu, tidied up tray and taskbar, and then the live tiles will be gone as well in the new start menu, like they were in Windows 10X. And Windows 10X is still available, actually. I think they can still download the dual screen emulator, and I don't know if they've pulled it yet. Actually, I've not checked, but it was there last time I looked, and you can try that. But I've also heard some suggestions there might be some kind of widget support, which will be interesting. Got a bit of a throwback to the Vista days with the sidebars. Yeah,
that'd be kind of what goes around comes around, I think, is the
I think it always seemed a good idea, and I liked them. I guess one of the main issues with it was the amount of screen real estate it took. Now with these super wide, extra high res monitors, you've got a lot more screen space to play with, haven't you? I mean, I use the Edge with the bar down the side on the left hand side now, because on this 4K monitor I've got so much space. There's plenty of space, so an extra bar of widgets or something would be no problem. But I don't know whether that's what they're going to be, like a bar down the side. I'm suspecting there'll be some kind of floating things like the new Edge one. But it'd be interesting to see that, especially if developers are allowed to come up with their own things as well. And the other thing I think we really need to find out about is the upgrade as well, isn't it? Whether we'll be able to go from Windows 10 to Windows 11. It's not written in stone that Windows 11 would be a free update, if it isn't indeed called Windows 11. That's the other thing, and we haven't. The leaked build has Windows 11 all over it, but that's not to say they haven't changed their mind since then.
Yeah, well, we've had that before, haven't we? Certainly things have been changed a lot. So.
I've got builds of Windows with freestyle, Windows freestyle, or all these Veil. No, Veil was the Windows Home Server one. What was the XP Media Center one?
I used to remember all those.
Diamond was one of them, wasn't it? But all these code names.
Diamond, yeah.
Yeah. These were in place. So that'd be interesting. But what I think would be interesting to see was how they're going to give it is it going to be a free upgrade to Windows 10 users? What about Windows 7, Windows 8 users? Are they entitled to an upgrade? So I think that's going to be an interesting thing to see how all that pulls together, and to see whether that really does. My guess is it'll just be exactly as Windows 11, it's Windows 10, where it will be an upgrade that you'll get a little box in this. This is my prediction. We can test it next week. In this, we'll have exactly like now, where you go into settings, it'll say there's Windows 11 available, download and install, and maybe you'll get a little pop up in the taskbar as well at some point, like they did when you were on Windows 7. And then at some point in the future, you'll be pushed onto Windows 11. You won't have a choice with Windows 10, because your version of Windows 10 will go out of support.
Yeah. Yep, I can see that.
So I think that's what we'll do. And then of course there's a new store as well, so I'll be interested to see what that's done yet.
Yeah, I think this was probably the most interesting thing which is coming, how that's going to work. From a developer point of view, if there's different ways of putting your stuff up onto Windows than there's currently, and I know they've been talking about reducing the friction of that, whatever that may be. So how easy is it going to be to distribute stuff? I don't know. I mean, there's always been a trade-off between security and ease of uploading stuff. I mean, obviously, if anybody can upload anything, then the whole Trojanware becomes a real issue again. But yeah, it's certainly interesting to see what's going on there. So,
and then of course, we'll see the things like the rounded corners everywhere and all that kind of thing as well. Which
that's doing, yeah.
And the notifications as well coming through the that sidebar. Maybe we'll get a bit more like Windows 10X with the buttons, the toggle buttons, and that kind of thing, and the notifications coming in there. So I think there's a lot to show. I think this is going to be a pretty packed event because I think they've actually got a lot to show. And as we've mentioned before in the show, it's never the front end work is probably not always the most work. The most actual work goes into all the back end stuff, and I think they spent the last 2 or 3 years really honing that down. And this is now the result of that work being complete and them being focused just on the UI. So I think it's going to be quite nice to see.
I'm really excited to see what they're going to do. I think there's a lot of questions as to what's actually going to happen, and particularly I think, as you say, the back end stuff, because we haven't really seen anything in the Windows 10 releases, and this may explain why we haven't been seeing much.
Yeah,
it's maybe all the stuff's been going on in the background on this project.
Yeah. The other thing that there might be some changes to things like the task scheduler and things like that, because that's been hung around. I think it's basically the XP version that's still in there, isn't it? And I think there's a lot of work be done around that as well to optimize it. So yeah, I really looking forward to watching that. And what do you reckon the chances are that we'll get a build this week as well? So maybe Thursday.
Yeah, I've been basically they announce it without something coming out, especially since we know the leaks have been out there. So you'd think that was basis of something.
Yeah, hopefully that if we don't get something this week, it'd be nice if they said, "Oh well, you're going to get a build next week with some of this thing." That's what I'm suspecting. I think we'll get a build this week, next week, that has some of the features, not all of them, and then they'll get pushed out over time for insiders. So the final part of it then will be, when do you think they will target the release date for this, for the consumers rather than enterprise?
I wouldn't be surprised if consumers is immediately after this announcement. That's sort of it could be. I mean, it's either going to be a long way in the distance, or it's going to be immediately after this announcement. two things. It's be holidays this year, so Christmas time, or be immediately after this announcement.
Yeah. So I suppose the only thing I'm thinking is it would be 21H2, so September time, and Windows insiders will get it this week, and we'll get a few months to test it.
Yeah, I could see that as well. I see it being sometime.
Yeah,
sometime. But it depends how they want to do it. I mean, they may decide not to push it out to insiders. It may be a straight push out release, which would be a bit unfortunate, but that's the sort of thing they've been doing.
Yeah, it could be. But the beta channel's not had much, or the dev channel say not had much interesting stuff for a while, so I think it's crying out for an update. So hopefully we'll find out. So I'll include a link in the show notes but I think if you by the time the show the show goes out Thursday morning, so you may not have watched it yet. So Microsoft's Windows account has got all the links on it as well, but we'll have the links for that as well. So look out for that. It's going to be really interesting, and you'll see a lot of tweets about it, I would imagine, on Thursday from the predictable snarky ones from the certain sources, other people you're looking forward to it, and so on. So yeah, I think it's going to be a good day.
Yeah, I think it should be. I think it's nice to have something new to look forward to on the Windows front. We haven't really had anything for ages, so yeah, I think it's going to be good.
Yeah, I will have my beta, my Surface Go ready to do the ready to install the update, and then I can do a build video. Very nice to do a build walkthrough on Friday, something like that. If we got the builds then, because other than that, on for Windows Insiders, the only thing we've had was there was a minor update last week, wasn't there? So 1904.3.0 1081 or 1904.2 1081, depending whether you're on 21H1 or 21H or 20H2, but it's not very much changes to that. There was only a couple of fixes in that. I'll say a couple actually. There's quite a few fixes in there, but this was for beta and release preview, which is really confusing at the moment because they're actually, you could actually be on either, couldn't you? If on release preview, so my Surface laptop is on release preview, but it's on 21H1, but my other device is on release preview, but that's on 20H1 or 20H2, sorry. So yeah, it's a little bit, it's a bit weird how they're servicing all these, but there was a lot of updates and fixes for this, but they're all minor things. Some mixed reality stuff as well, which is good. So you going out of apps and back into it and things like that. So worth it for Windows mixed reality users. But yeah, nothing too significant for us users. Now, during last week, I think it was last week, we talked about whatever happened to the Windows startup sound.
Yes, we were. Yes.
Yeah, and we were trying to work out when it got removed and why. And James Duncan sent us the link. So hello, James. He sent me a link to a YouTube channel by Jensen Harris, who was, I think it was a program manager for Microsoft at the time of Windows 8 and from the time before. I think it was on Office before that as well. He's got a few videos up there. There's a couple of interesting ones about UI design and things like that, and why the start button. Remember the Office button? Yeah. It was a thing for a while. Yeah. Why that was a thing, and then why it went away again. But the one that was really interesting that James sent us was a link to a video called "Why I Killed the Windows Startup Sound." And I'll include a link in the show notes. But basically, he goes into why Windows 8 had no startup sound, and neither did Windows 8.1 or Windows 10. And I've got a feeling it's coming back in Windows 11, only because we had those those videos Microsoft put out with all the other sounds. So I'll let everybody watch it, but just the basic part of it was multiple reasons. The first one being that he didn't want to switch his laptop on during the night and wake his wife and young kids up. Which actually is a really good point. I actually never thought of that. So you fire your laptop up and you maybe left your speakers on full volume when you were in the office, and then you take your laptop home, and at 2 o'clock in the morning you need to check something, and you fire your laptop up, and it does an enormous dong sound as it does it, or the do whatever the Windows sounds, or the Mac sound. And how do you stop that happening when it's shut down? You can't turn it off before it comes on. I mean, the old day with speakers, you could turn your speakers down, but if it's on a laptop, you can't do that. So that was his reasoning for it, and so yeah, they plan not to include that with, and then I think he kind of felt that maybe that should be an option. So it gives you the option of doing it, and maybe they could use some kind of data to, for example, ambient light sensor. So if it detects it's dark when you open your laptop lid, it doesn't do the sound, or it does it quietly, or something like that. So he was kind of thinking of these different scenarios, but he was actually stopped by the Windows fundamentals team, who are working particularly on the ARM version, because this is the time for when the Surface came out, the ARM version. And basically the resource time that it needed, or the extra resources it needed, affected the startup performance, and which is what we speculated when we talked about it. But yeah, it was enough of an impact, and they were working so hard to try and claw back that performance, especially on ARM, that anything added back in again would have been to the detriment of the startup speed. So it got blocked for coming in, and that's why it's never been in there. But it's well worth watching the video, because he also mentions briefly that the tiled full screen menu was actually a separate UI, and not ever meant for the desktop version. So, when Windows 8 came out, when we were using it on a Surface RT, it made sense in that full screen interface, and we liked it on there, but desktop users hated it. Well, it sounds like, and he said he was going to do some more videos, so we'll probably find out more, but it sounds like the plan was initially to have a tablet UI and a desktop UI, and the Surface RT and other devices would run the tablet UI with full screen, and the desktop would have the desktop UI, and they would be on the same device, but that somewhere along the line that got merged, and we got what we got with Windows 8, which a lot of people hated, a lot of desktop users hated, and that decision was obviously was made at some point for the right reasons, but it didn't work out. So of course we got it all reversed back, where we are Windows 10. So yeah, very interesting video, and he has some other videos talking about user interface design that are well worth watching as well. But he's only got a couple of videos, but I've subscribed to his channel because it's well worth. If he's going to talk about Windows 8 as well, that's particularly interesting, because the historical stuff is great, but that was an area that we were actively involved with and doing testing and everything else. So it's very nice to find out the background, what goes on this stuff. I don't know how much of an NDA you sign when you're with Microsoft to talk about stuff when you left, but there must be some limitations, I'm guessing, on yeah. But anyway, that's it. So now you know why the Windows startup sound is gone, and obviously, and that may be coming back. But I thought more interesting was the Windows 8 separate OS. I think it would have made so much more sense if Windows 8 had been just the tablet UI on the tablet devices and the desktop UI on the desktop devices. There may be the option to switch them on and off and everything, but it would have certainly made a big. Well, I wonder if you have Windows 10 now, because really Windows 10 was the reaction to all of that. Windows 8.1 was trying to put things right a little bit, but that decision somewhere on, I don't know, it doesn't say who made the decision or why that decision was made, but it would have been interesting to have them as entirely separate UIs. It's one of those decisions that make that change the way that operating systems are viewed, really. So anyway, thanks for that link, James, and it's well worth checking out that video if you're interested in startup sounds and Windows development in general.
Yeah, that is really interesting. I'll say it's just having a quick glance. There's some really cool stuff on his channel. So definitely worth a look.
Yeah, definitely. Especially there's some things about UI design that looked really. If you're interested in UI design, definitely worth checking out. Yeah. What else did we have this week? So yeah, it's been relatively quiet on the Windows side. I did get my laptop all up to date with all my drivers and for my music stuff. I was testing out that MIDI interface, and that's been working brilliantly actually. 10 quid MIDI interface, and it's working really well. So USB in one end, MIDI in out on the other end. I know we talked about it a couple of weeks ago, but I've had no issues with it at all, and it works perfectly for sending SystemX data. So if you wanted to, remotely program the synth, that kind of stuff, which the cheap drivers don't always do that, the cheap MIDI interfaces, and that's been working good for me. So definitely recommend that one. No more new synths are allowed now.
Last one.
that was the last one for now. Or drum machine. Actually, I was surprised. I don't know. been out of the loop for a while, but I think we talked about Behringer, haven't we, a few times on the show in the past about some of their audio interfaces.
Yeah.
In fact, my mixer over here is a Behringer. I didn't realise how that they're actually going back and recreating a lot of stuff that I'm guessing is out of copyright or whatever. So they're remaking modern versions of 1970s synthesizers or drum machines, and I think they're reverse engineering them. So some of the stuff like a TR-909 Roland one, the sort of the drum machine used by House Music, and that they couldn't give them away in the 80s, in the mid 80s, and then of course after techno and house and everything else, they become super fashionable and rare, and now you can pay sort of 4,000 or 5,000 quid for one, when probably in 1985 you'd probably pay like 50 quid for them. But they've recreated that. They've got new ones out of that using analog circuitry, but I guess they must be effectively reverse engineering these, and I'm not quite sure how they get away with it, because Roland obviously still go in and they make their own recreations of it in various ways as well. But Behringer have got this huge range of synthesizing stuff that they've managed to do and sell based on old models.
Yeah, it does seem amazing that they can do that, but they obviously can, because I'm sure that Roland would be after them if they couldn't, because
yeah. But it's not just Roland ones. They've got some Korg ones, some ARP Odyssey. They've got an ARP recreation of the ARP Odyssey, and they've got a Minimoog recreation. And all these companies still exist in various forms or whatever. So yeah, there we go. So but anyway, not on my menu. No more gear for me. Unless we get the thing I'm hoping for is a dual screen Surface device announced on Thursday.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
That's my next gadget. I haven't brought any new computers for some time, actually. My Surface laptop is still doing the job quite nicely. I think whether I might upgrade the Surface Go, but it's actually doing the job quite well. I'm going to do I think I might wait till get this new build with Windows 11 and then do a reset to start clean with Windows 11. But the thing is now is things you don't. In the past, when a new operating system came out, say Vista or XP or something, you really needed to upgrade to get the best of it, especially when Vista came out. You realized the extra requirement, extra RAM, and the Vista ready graphics cards and everything else. But I don't think that's going to be the case this time with Windows 11. And if your PC runs Windows 10, it's going to run whatever new version Microsoft come out with.
Well, you would think so, yeah. I can't see why that would not be the case, but
in fact, since Windows 7, really, each version of Windows, if your machine ran Windows 7, I'd pretty say you could probably run Windows 10 just as well, or if not better.
And that's the rumor I'm hearing now, that Windows 11 will be even more performant than previous versions. So that'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, so it's not justification for me to get a new Surface laptop.
Wow. There's always justification for you to get a new laptop, isn't there?
Yeah. Well, my gaming one it gets used now because that's got all the music software on there, so that actually gets quite. So maybe I need a new gaming one. That's what it is.
Yeah, that's probably what it is.
Yeah, although I very rarely do any gaming on it now, but you think with lockdown and things like that, I would have been more time gaming, but I haven't done any for ages. Well, there are some good games coming out. In fact, I saw today a tweet saying that Xbox One X, Xbox Series X are in Amazon. So my son is still trying to get one. So I sent him the link, and by the time he got there, they'd sold out again.
Oh, that's no fun.
It's real. I'm surprised it's taken that long, really, because October was the first came out, but he still can't get one. The production, I'm guessing this is to do with COVID, not just low stock level. Not that Microsoft deliberately having low stock levels, because you think that they want to sell as many as they can.
You definitely would think they'd want to sell as many as they can, but I think it's. I mean, we know there's still this component sort of shortage, and it's probably something to do with that.
In fact, talking of component shortages, I was talking to someone over the weekend who was saying that some car manufacturers are having to go back to old dash systems because there's a shortage of chips.
Yeah, the old actually analog dials are coming back in some cars because they can't get chipsets, which is amazing, isn't it? I just think.
Yeah, because what we were saying is that my version of BMW has got the digital dials in there, but if you buy that, which I got in January, but if you buy that model now and it gets delivered later this year, it'll have analog dials in it, like my older one had. Yeah, because the chips aren't available for the digital dials.
Which is it seems crazy, but it's the case.
Yeah, I don't know.
You'd be disappointed if that was the case, wouldn't you?
Sorry, say again.
You'd probably be disappointed if that had happened to you.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I mean, especially if you see some digital dials and then you get yours and it's got analog dials in them. But I don't know which manufacturer is it. I'm not really sure on who makes these chips, whether it's across the board, just a chip shortage in general, and it's a specific chip that that cars are using.
And it's more than one manufacturer, but I just don't know. I don't know which manufacturers it is. But I do know there's been a general shortage of certain chips. It's one or two factories, I think, which actually had the big impact on it. But yeah, I think this is something Richard will probably have more information on. He can tell us all about next week, because I know it's been a big story in the register of all this chip shortage stuff.
Yeah. In fact, I just did a quick search of it, and I can see loads of articles about it as recently as last week. So yeah, we'll have to ask Richard about that next week. Yeah, so who knew we should have stocked up on automotive chips.
The good news though is you can get your graphics cards again now. They banned Bitcoin mining in China.
Have they?
Yeah, so in certain provinces in China it's now illegal to Bitcoin mine, and people have been selling off loads of graphic cards which have been to make some money. So I think there's that the pricings of those is starting to come down again. It's good because it was virtually impossible to build your own laptop or own PC for a long while because it just weren't available.
Yeah, Jack just wanted to swap out his PC that he built himself 18 months ago now. He wanted to upgrade the graphics card and he just can't get hold of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's a shame really because it's they end up super expensive then as well. By scalpers just buy them and
absolutely. Yeah. So hopefully that some of the scalpers will get scalped because the prices are crashing.
Yeah, that's good. I know he wanted to upgrade his at some point. I don't know what the need is for that because it looks pretty good to me. But I do remember doing that myself. When I have my I think probably the time I spent the most time upgrading it might have been a 486 or maybe I had a Pentium in there. I can't remember.
Yeah,
I remember buying 4 meg of RAM for it. Going to Wigan, especially to Wigan, to get 4 meg of RAM, and it being really expensive. I think it was about 100 quid or something like that, maybe. With my Sound Blaster AWE32, which was a major upgrade from the Sound Blaster 16.
That was the thing. Those were the days when we used to have Sound Blaster cards.
Yeah, it was. Funny, I mentioned I've been reading through these old music technology magazines, and I think it was 1990. When was it on? 91, 92. They just started talking about these sort of sound cards as being a thing then as well. So you had the Roland MT32 and some of the creatives that were using the Yamaha sound chips in there. In fact, the sound chip that was in the MSX that we talked about a few weeks ago is what was in the Sound Blasters, and not the AWE ones, but the older the 16-bit, the 16 ones, which used a FM sound chip in there that was in the CX5. So that sound chip was released in 85, something like that. I think Sega used the same chip as well. So it had that. It was a cut down version of the DX7 chip, and it went all the way through into the 90s with before the samples that came in with the AW32. That's why they sounded so much better when you get those. But I do remember the LucasArts games; they were one of the first to support the AW32, and the other one was the Star Wars X-Wing games. Remember X-Wing?
Yeah.
When you got the AWE, it had the samples in rather than the FM, so you went from having a sort of very artificial sounding engine to samples, which sounded amazing for mid-90s. I remember that sounding fantastic, and the games really so different. And then of course you got CD games with all the music on as well. You take it for granted now, all these games have got amazing sound in there. They must spend millions with sound designers doing all that, but back in the old days it was a lot simpler. The Doom was on a 16, on a Sound Blaster 16, sounded fantastic. What other stories did we have this week? Oh, you had a couple of EV things. I've seen your tweets this week.
Well, there's been a lot going on in the old GridServe world with the putting these replacement chargers out. So I mentioned they were putting these replacement chargers out to replace the existing electric highway ones last time I was on, which they've been doing very quickly. Now there has been some pushback on that, because one of the things they've done is they've replaced a lot of the combined CHAdeMO, CCS and Type 2 chargers with just CCS chargers, which actually is great for the majority of people, because most people, as I mentioned before, CCS is the new standard basically for UK EV charging. It's what all cars will have going forward. But there's still a lot of cars out there running CHAdeMO, all the old Nissan Leafs, and a lot of Renault Zoes which can only charge on Type 2 and need fast Type 2s to do it. So GridServe have been really open about this. There's some really good articles written by Tollington, their boss, which have basically said what they're going to do, explained the reasoning. It's basically this chip shortage again has been causing them issues. They can't get hold of the chargers which actually do everything they want them to do. So they've been putting in ones they can get hold of. So they're going to put Type 2 chargers in and everything else. But the other thing they've announced is that all their chargers they're going to put in, the single chargers they're going to put in, are actually going to be able to charge 2 vehicles at once. Later in the year with the software update, which I think is really good. So that makes really good use of the space they've got out front of the motorway services. I think we are going to find that when these chargers go in and they're reliable, they're going to get much more usage than they've been getting recently up to now, because quite often nobody around those chargers because they just don't work. So they'll be misusing them. I think once they get reliable, they're going to be almost a victim of their own success. But they've said they're going to expand. And they've got a big announcement coming up next week about what they're going to be doing and how they're going to expand and what to see. So I think it's definitely progress in the right direction. The ones they're putting in are definitely reliable for CCS, which is great, because there's a lot of vehicles out there are CCS. My car being one of them, so I'll actually be able to charge on them going forward. But there have been a few glitches, but they're very open and very honest about what they're doing and keeping everybody informed, which I think is really good. As we'd probably expect from having Sam on the other week, he was very open about it. So I'm intrigued to see what they're going to announce on this 1st of July press conference. Not press conference, but announcements they're going to put out. I think it's going to. I'm wondering if they're going to have a subscription service available. We sort of talked about potential for and maybe even plug and charge, which would be really good. But yeah, they're certainly going in the right direction. But with the adoption which is happening, because the EV adoption this year is starting to really accelerate, as you'd expect it to, with the deadline coming up. I think we're going to see more and more vehicles using those chargers. So we're going to need things like the rugby chargers set up we mentioned a few weeks ago, where there's a lot of chargers. When I was away, I stopped on a charger on the way back, which was one of the MFG petrol stations, multi-fuel group, which they'd actually converted virtually all their parking spaces to being chargers. So they had about 8 chargers in this little out of the way petrol station. I can see that definitely be in the future of these things. So I think it's going to be less of an issue for people to charge, definitely going forward. It's going to be much more. You can find things a lot easier, and the rate of expansion is huge. I mean, there's already more chargers than there are petrol stations. What I'd like to see is there's more chargers than there are petrol pumps. And that I don't think that'd be too far down along the line. I mean, there's been an interesting thread on Twitter the last couple of weeks of people taking pictures of the local petrol stations empty, no cars filling up, which is under normal circumstances wouldn't have been the case. But yeah, it's definitely intriguing to see this. I mean, I'm certainly seeing far more EVs on the road than I was previously, and there's a lot of them coming to market in the next few months. So it's been interesting to see how that goes.
Yeah, and I suppose once the second-hand market gets filled with these older cars as well, that's going to make a big difference.
And that's actually why it's really important that good stuff do this, putting the Chanamos in to make sure they're there for people still to use, because most of those second-hand cars are likely to be Leafs, because that's the biggest selling car, or Zoes, which was the second biggest selling car. So there are going to be a lot of those on the market in the next few years or so. In fact, there already are a lot of those in the market, and they'll be around for a few years yet. So unless they can find some way of converting them over to PCS, there's still a need for Chanamo out there. But yeah, interesting.
Yeah, so I'm guessing over time these things like fuel stations, the petrol stations, they're going to have to adapt, or they'll close. It's just you've got to over time.
I think that's actually that's quite a likely thing to happen. To be honest, I think you're going to find that's more and more of the petrol stations will disappear, which is interesting.
And again, I suppose the places that will still do well will be places where there's something to do while you're there, because unlike currently the way it's not like a car where you've got a petrol or diesel where you're stood there physically holding the pipe while you're filling it up. You're probably going to look at maybe at a supermarket where you can go and do your shopping while it's charging, or if you're on a long journey, you get a coffee or do something else. It's probably those kind of things that will be the places.
So sort of that journey I had away before. That's exactly what I was doing. I was stopping parking at supermarkets with chargers, or parking in car parks which had chargers, and just topping up. So virtually every journey I did, I ended up with more power in the car than when I started. You have to plan a bit for that, because you need to make sure you've got a bit of buffer to fill up, because obviously if you start from full and you go down, you use the mileage to get to where you're going, you can only fill it up by that mileage again. You can't have anything else on top of that. But it's quite good. But I can't remember the last time I did that in a petrol car. Turned up to a supermarket and left with more fuel.
Yeah, definitely not. Yeah,
other than by paying for it at their petrol station.
Yeah, that's a definite. Yeah. I guess it's just a thing of people adapting their lifestyles to suit this new way of charging, and it's a crossover at some point.
It's a crossover at some point. I mean, I certainly find it. When a couple of times I've had loaner petrol cars recently, I found it actually quite a strange thing to actually have to go out and get fuel. That's why am I needing to make a special journey to do this? That's the kind of where my brain is when that happens. Because I don't normally, I just plug it in at home now, because I've got the ability to plug it at home now. But and even when I didn't have the ability to plug in at home, I'd only plug in when I went shopping. It wasn't. I didn't do anything else. I went shopping, I plugged it in, and had enough charge for the rest of the week, basically. So it is an interesting. It's a mindset. It's definitely a different mindset. And obviously that works at the moment, because we're in a quite a magical space really for us early adopters of EVs, that there's not too many people out there with EVs at the moment, and there's quite a bit of infrastructure. The infrastructure needs to keep up, because eventually they're going to need a lot more chargers in these shopping centres and things, if you're going to be able to do that sort of thing. But at the moment it works really well.
Yeah, I suppose that's it. As long as they keep on top of that, because at some point, if the more people than infrastructure, then that becomes an issue, especially if you're used to having all the infrastructure to yourself.
Yeah, and I think that has been has been a bit of a there's been pushback on that on some cases, and I think that's actually where some of the pushback on the grid surfing has come from with Chattermore drivers, because they've been used to having it all their own way at these motorway services, because theirs was the only charging usually which was working properly. And now they haven't got as many charges as they had previously, and I think that's been a bit of a shock to them. But then again, the CCS guys didn't have any charges, so in some of these services, so it's one of those trade-offs. But I think, I mean, GridServe are doing the right thing here. They're trying to sort it out. And hopefully, when chip services sort themselves out, they'll get that working. And I'm really impressed with their communication. I think it's certainly a lot of the charge networks are very poor at communicating what they're doing. What installs are doing, what's happening about those installs, why they're not working, and things like that. And so far, GridServe have been really good on that. So it'll be interesting to see. I mean, other ones which are good are things like Osprey have always been very good at communicating as well. Another charge network, but some of the others are a bit more obscure about what's going on. And I think we need that. We need reliability. We need clarity. We need clarity in pricing, etc. to make it work. I mean, the one thing you can really tell with the GridServe guys is that they are owned by people who drive EVs and are enthusiastic about EVs and want it to work, rather than perhaps a lot of the other networks are owned by former petrol companies who may not want it to work quite so quickly.
Yeah, they got vested interest. Yeah.
So yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting to see.
Excellent. Well, hopefully in a few weeks' time, a couple of weeks' time, I'll actually get to see your EV as well. Yeah. So maybe you can take me for a quick tour in the EV.
Yeah, you certainly do something. Whatever we're allowed to do.
yeah, whatever. Yeah. Well, I'm double jabbed now, so feeling better now. So where can we find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Gary WMA. That's Gary 2 R's. I'm not one of the Garys which is dying out, apparently, according to Twitter. I don't know if you saw that one today. The name Gary with 1 R is disappearing by 20 something or other. I'm not sure how that worked. But that was a big thing on Twitter today. But yeah, so at Gary with 2 R's WMA, or you can find me on fascinatingtech.com. And we will get this issue out. It is almost finished now, the latest, this spring summer issue. I'll get it out. I promise I'll get it out before autumn.
Okay, we'll cut you some slack. You're a slightly busy man.
Yeah, there's been a few reasons why it's not gone as quickly as we would have liked, but it's almost there. And there's some good stuff in this issue. There's obviously the smart curtains, which we've talked about before. Some other smart home stuff. Not quite nice electric bike and a few other things in there. So it'll be interesting read.
Excellent stuff. Well, you can find me on Twitter at ISDixon. We'll be back next week with all the news from the Microsoft event, and we'll see how much we got right and how much we got wrong next week, and we'll be talking about all that. And you never know, we might even have bits to try as well, which we can talk about. So until next week, we'll see you then.
Yeah, take care. Cheers.